and welcome to a discussion on the topic religion and nationalism. This lecture is divided into mainly three sections followed by a conclusion. In the first section, I will discuss about the nationalism. Here, the main focus will be on that nationalism which is not basically religion based. In the second section, I will discuss about the religious nationalism. That means nationalism which is based on religion. Under this broad section, there are mainly two subdivisions. In the first subdivision, I will elaborate on the point on the formation of the ethno-religious nationalism. In the second subdivision, I will speak about the particularities of the nationalism which are based on religion. Finally, in the last but not the least section, I will talk about the different trajectories or paths that the nationalism which are motivated by religion have followed. My lecture ends with a concluding part that draws an overall picture of the total relationship between the nationalism and religion. First of all, I would like to say a few lines on the basic concept of religion. Religion is the human response to the apprehension of something or supernatural power. It is the expression of the manner and the type of adjustment effected by people with their conception of supernatural. Robertson here said that religion refers to the existence of supernatural beings which have a governing effect of life. To begin with, I would like to state that religion and nationalism are the two core issues of a political nation, rather the two faces of a same coin called nation, and they both are very much ambivalent in their own perspectives. The nationality, religion and nationalism have been the hot topics of debates and discussions not only in the political and religious arena but also has been a significant concern among the social thinkers and analysts. Throughout the world presently, we see the national turmoil based on the religion mainly. The global peace is at stake because of the interconflict between the religion and nationalism. One of the major role of religion is to give serene shelter to the people. People find mental protection under the umbrella of religion. Now, Durkheim is of the opinion that religion and nationalism are more or less same. They have little, negligible or no difference at all between them. In Durkheim's elementary forms of religious life, religion and nationalism is just as an analogous phenomenon. Hayes opined that nationalism has a spirit of creating a deep and compelling emotion which is essentially religious. Just like religion worships God with rituals and ceremonies, nationalism involves faith in some unseen supreme power, feelings of awe and reverence, and ceremonial rites focused on the flag. The major function of religion is to tie the social community under the banner of togetherness and commitment towards the same thoughts. Nationalism too strives towards the same aim. Anthony Smith said it more clearly that nationalism is like a new religion of the people, a religion that acts as bindings, ritually repetitive and collectively enthusing as any other. To precise, it can be said that religion is a philosophy of life without which social community, or rather human beings, cannot come under the same umbrella of nationalism. Whether it is secularism, what encloses all religions and protects religious rights, or one nation, one state that propagates only one principal religion-based nation. Religion and nationalism are the two faces of the same coin called nation. Here, Robert Bella also puts the same thing in other words. He brings in the concept of civil religion. To explain this notion, he clearly says that national identity is inseparable from the influence of religion. Now, I want to elaborate on the main function of nationalism and religion. Both seems to have the same meaning as they fulfill the same criteria of the needful. Both nationalism and religion binds the entire bulk of the population under the shade of belongingness. Nationalism and nationality are not the same. Nationalism is just like a religion. Just as people follow religion blindly with complete faith and loyalty, similarly, people for the sake of nationalism can hold hands together with full faith and commitment. Carlton Hayes opines that nationalism is like a substitution to the historic supernatural religion. Again, Safar magnifies the concept by telling that nation and nationalism both gives rise to new aims and goals, a new horizon and new gods, new ways to achieve a better life during the time of our oppression. Thus, in this issue, it is just like the functionalist approach. We can say that nationalism in this perspective originates from a need. Nationalism, in other words, fulfills the need and the necessary. Under this topic of religion and nationalism, I will mainly focus on nationalism as an opponent of religion, under which I throw lights on the sub-issues like nationalism and individualism, nationalism and nation state, faith and interfaith, on religion and nationalism. Firstly, to speak about the issue of nationalism as an anti-force towards the religion, I have to begin with the 16th century Western society. Britain is the first country that gave the birth of the new modern voice called nationalism. Now, in France, the philosophers like Montesquieu, Rousseau, Voltaire and all brought in the concept of individualism, egalitarian society, scientific outlook and spoke aloud for the rights of man. In the Western countries, nationalism basically emerged as a modernizing force. God, the supreme power, was replaced with the scientific mind, logical and positive mental framework of the intellectuals. Enlightenment period welcomed the era of new thoughts and positivity. The French Revolution created the nation and democracy equally at the same length. So, nation became a collective association of citizens. Enlightenment created an individualistic form of nationalism and it leads to modernism. Individualism paves the way for the material, logical and scientific module. Industrial era was based on the open door of enlightenment and positivity. Elie Kedourie, the British historian of the Middle East, critically analyzed the Marxist interpretations of history and nationalism. He even sternly opined that it was Kant who developed self-determinant nationalism in Germany. Tracing this path, it is easy to say that nationalism in Eastern countries had its roots in the Western sphere. Thus, Enlightenment formed nationalism as a byproduct of individualism. Marcel Mauss, a French sociologist, believes that nation forms with a society which is materially and morally integrated. It must have a stable and permanent centralized political power, well-established borders. The citizens must have morally, mentally and cultural unity. The inhabitants of a nation consciously adhere to the state and its laws. Thus, religion lost its importance in forming the nation in a nationalist world. Religion, through its rules, regulations, doctrines, deprived mankind of their liberty, rational, open-minded thoughts and self-determination policies. Thus, frankly speaking, the nationalist world left no space for religion. Religious groups and its leaders altogether aim at developing a society which is virtually and morally opponent towards the feeling of political nationalism. Now, here I want to mention about Louis Dumont, who said that a nation is basically a collection of individuals. Religion tends to create communalism and not nationalism. In the Western countries, the nation states were formed on the basis of this political philosophy itself. Nation state means one nation, one state. These nation states formally secularized the public sphere totally. As a result, they wanted to separate the youth generation from the church by nationalizing the church properties and creating an independent secular education system. This system actually separated the religion into the private sphere according to the famous 1905 Act. And so, there was a clear legal distinction between the Catholic Church and the nation state. The schoolmasters, as a part of civil service, were spread throughout the country to educate the new young generation. The main intention was to remove the ecclesiastical teaching to build the nation. Anti-clericalism became a part of the official and political ideology. In this context, the Enlightenment topic must come along. France, since 18th century, emphasized on the Enlightenment philosophy. This particular philosophy's major aim was developing the nation on the basis of scientific outlook and logical doctrines. Religion was kept apart from this context completely. We can say that with the decline of religion, the nationalism based on Enlightenment doctrine developed. But surely the scenario was different in case of the rest of the world. Britain gave importance on the religion as they focused the idea of Anglicanism, which means not only the religion but also a distinct political identity. Again, we can see that American president takes his pledge on the Bible, though their nationalism was formed in the anti-colonialism and emerged as an emancipatory force. India too is of no exception in focusing the importance of religion in the formation of national identity. India, as it is the home of multiple religious ideologies and sects, has made secularization as one of the official mottos and secularism as a most important chapter of the Indian Constitution. To precise, it can be said that religion is a philosophy of life without which social community, or rather human beings, cannot come under the same umbrella of nationalism. Whether it is secularism that includes all religions and protects religious rights, or one nation, one state that propagates only one principal religion based nation, religion and nationalism are the two faces of the same coin called nation. So, undoubtedly there is an intimate relationship between the religion and nationalism. Before the origin of the nation, we had kingdoms or empires ruled by the kings. One king or emperor used to rule the entire kingdom. Thus, the concept of nation state was embodied in the king or emperor. All the people of the country owed their loyalty and complete faith to God and the king. King had the supreme administrative power, and under his cushion rested the priestly class of religious community. Thus, religion and nationalism had its deep connection since the origin of the civilization, which took the color and shape differently at various parts of time. Shortly, we can say nationalism is an in-group loyalty to a power structure that is temporal. Religion is an in-group loyalty to a power structure that is transcendent. Nationalism took birth under the most modern ideology dedicated to the emancipation of mankind against all obstacles, including religion. But this agenda was incomplete because it was implemented by the state bureaucracies. Its main aim was only to flourish the man-dominated culture instead of religion-dominated culture, and it included only that particular countrymen. So, it became a problem gradually when globalization flourished and immigration expanded. Through the essence of globalization, migrants travel across the national borders, and as a result they carry their religion along with them. So, universal nationalism has to keep all the religions under their political agenda. This leads to another interrelated concept of faith and interfaith on religion and secularism in the whole. Faith in religion is common among men around the world irrespective of ages and races. Now, drawing the thread of faith and interfaith on religion, I can easily connect to the topic of religion-based nationalism and come to the second half of my lecture. Religion-based nationalism, which includes the topics like the formation of ethno-religious nationalisms, reformist solution to the dilemma of the intelligentsia, the particularities of the religious nationalism, the trajectories or the paths followed by the nationalism guided by the religion and secularism. Respect to all religions and right to practice their own religion leads to the path of secularism. This interfaith on several doctrines leads to the one unified bond of universal nationalism, which gives shape to the national identity. Thus, nationalism is based on positivity. Now, to speak about the religion-based nationalism, first I want to focus on the difference between universalistic nationalism and ethnic nationalism. Universalist nationalism originates from individualistic point of view. Ethnic nationalism originates from cultural and collective features like religion. In many cases, apart from religion, language has also played a major role in forming ethnic nationalism. In Poland, religion-based nationalism exists as their nationalism is wholeheartedly committed to the Roman Catholic Church. Russian Orthodox Church also executes its influence and superiority over the Russian Federation. But we can see that mostly non-Western societies mainly are based on ethno-religious societies. and Western societies are based on materialism and individualism. For the nation of Pakistan, Muslim heritage, the religion of Islam and Pan-Islamism shows prior importance in the formation of nationalism. Religious Zionism is considered as a form of religion-based nationalism which focuses on the importance of the land of Israel, the Torah of Israel. Zionism is a nationalism itself of the Jews and Jewish culture. This has also happened due to the historical encounter between the Western and the non-Western societies. But most importantly, it is to be noted that though in these new nation states modernization has created nationalism as its byproduct, still it has gathered against the dominant other, the West. So, Western culture has spread over the centuries across the world either through colonialism or forms of imperialism. Most of the colonial and imperialized societies have gone under the Western culture through religion. Their entire life was ruled over by the religious rituals, festivals, beliefs. When the Westerners came into these societies, it became just like a challenge for both the clerical groups and aristocratic rulers who either confined themselves into shells or had to fight back with basic or primary means. An example was the Sipar mutiny, which initially started on the religious ground. The Indian soldiers revolted against the use of pig and cow-made grease for making the cartridges. According to Ernest Gellner, the term intelligentsia means a phenomenon which is essentially connected with the transition from the traditional to the industrial era or societies. It is a class or a group which is alienated from itself. But except small population of the intelligentsia, the others did not fully agree to the non-religious materialistic outlook towards life. They did not prefer their full alienation from the religious beliefs and tradition. They wanted to change, but that at the same time wanted to remain faithful and true to their own religious tradition. They did not want to eradicate their own religion completely. The dilemma into which the intelligentsia was immersed tried to find solution in the reformist strategy. Reformist tries to find the original religion and reform its structure with the essence of modernity and individualized achieved status. Reformists just picked up the main necessary part of the traditions selectively. They don't innovate or invent anything. The case of Lutheran Reformation is an example of the reformist strategy. In the 19th century also, the intelligentsia of the Western countries mainly reformed their religion in the name of returning to their roots. In doing so, they had put in many new modern features into their religion. The reformists of the polytheist religion claimed that they originally believed in monotheism, which means faith in only one God, because it was more prestigious. The social and ritual practices also had the same explanations. As for example, in India, we all know that the Brahmins were at the top of the social hierarchy. This was not just because they ascribed it through their birth, but also because they expressed super-personal qualities, achieved huge knowledge and became learned. Basically, Hobson and Ranger means it as inventions of traditions, as the traditions are not blindly followed. Traditions are rather reformed, altered and amended purposely, satisfying the need of the modernization. So, reformists searched the original religion. The scriptures are one of the main historical sources to know about the religious lives of the past. Sometimes they are scarcely available and also have a huge chances of exaggerations. But even when the scriptural sources are plenty available, then also those who read them, they prefer taking only those features that are suitable for their modern culture. They convince themselves that those rituals which are rejected by the Westerners somehow affect the human race, especially the women, and they are purely distorted form of the original. Anthony Smith says that the reformists transforms into revivalists. Reformists founded the golden age where the religion was flawless, and he tried to link it with the modernity. He did not ever wanted to come out of his own religion. Reformists wanted to alter their traditions according to the Western criteria, and the revivalists wanted to restore the core religion, keeping intact the values of it proudly. And they believed that this restoration, this respect to the traditions contributed to the genuine formation of the national identity. In this context, only the revivalists turned into nationalists. My country, right or wrong, has been the core essence of the nationalism. Reformists prefer to amend the tradition and maintain its purity, but nationalists opine that traditions are eternal, one religion, one state, where they all take shelter under one religious cultures, and in a secular state many religions share the space together. One religion, one state or secularism both form the national identity of a country. Religion-based nationalism is a form of ethnic nationalism, as it creates the national identity based on the traditions, cultural beliefs, religious values and faith of the majority of the people. In Spain and Belgium, ethnic nationalism emerged from language. In Britain, from religion. Even India, Pakistan got divided on the basis of their religion. India as a Hindu state and Pakistan as an Islamic state. When the linguistic and religious issues coincide, nationalism is hampered. As for example, in Sri Lanka, the opposition between the Hindu Tamils and Buddhist Sinhalese is a complicated issue. Multiculturalism, which is based on language, is easier to maintain than that which is based on religion. Federal government helps in diminishing the tension or remove the tension from the linguistic group and form a strong national identity based on the language instead of religion. This is also because of the sacredness of religion. The devotees are so much committed into the religious sacredness, purity and ecclesiastical power that they get always ready to defend their religion. But again, the religion based nationalism has been proved as weak and has fallen down. The ethnic nationalism, which is based on religion, is dynamic in nature. Their content changes in different ways, in different contexts, in course of time. For example, growing tension between the Shias and Sunnis in Afghanistan, Pakistan and Iraq challenges the very notion of Islam-based nationalism. Even Bangladesh got separated from Pakistan, though they were one nation, one state and was based on only one religion of Islam. In most of these countries, these developments are basically described as sectarianism, which stresses back to some of the features of the ethnic nationalism of the past. Sectarian basically includes the groups which mobilize because they fear the other. This other means either the majority in population like Shias in Iraq, Sunnis in Pakistan, or it gets the support from the foreign countries like Iran gets it. In a country, both the nationalism universalist, which is based on the materialism and non-religious beliefs, and also the ethnic nationalism, which is mainly based on the cultural ground, including the religion, can coexist. But as in India, we have seen that secular nationalism developed from the Hindutva movement. Since India is a Hindu dominant country, Hindu movement gained space and dominion. Dumo criticized it in his way, claiming that this militant Hindu movement is not complete nationalism but called communalism. Dumo criticized it in his way, claiming that this militant Hindu movement is not a complete nationalism but called communalism. But this communalism satisfies the criteria of ethnic nationalism. In a country, both the nationalisms can cohabit together, but the dominant nationalism can change itself from universalistic to religious form of ethnic nationalism. Zionism is an apt example of this account. It was a political organization originally formed for the re-establishment of the Jews by Theodor Herzl. He wanted to form a state for the Jews. He wanted the priests to remain inside the temples and their complete separation from the administration. But now, when Israel was created, Zionism gave rise to the Jewish state, which looked after the development and protection of the Jews mainly. The Jews held equal rights of citizenship. Poland also showed the transformation. Firstly, the Polish elites denounced the religious ideas with the administration, but later on the re-establishment of Poland merged its nationalism with Catholicism. Many countries like India have adopted secularism, which respects all religion and traditions. India became the largest democracy by assuming the multiculturalism and secularism. Secularism in India means not a complete separation of church and state, but it refers to the maintenance of the equidistance from all religions. Speaking of Indian politics, its nationalism and religion, it is definitely worthy of mentioning the name and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi in this context. In short, he believed in the great fundamental truth of all great religions of the world. He believed in one God, the fundamental God of humanity. He embraced the great contributions of all the religions like Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity that had tried their best to hold the unity and solidarity of the human society. But above all, he raised his voice in the favor of only that religion which transcends all these separate religions. Thus, to conclude, I tried to put it in a nutshell how religion and nationalism are the interrelated issues, so very different in their nature and characteristic issues, still having an everlasting relations in forming the national identity of a country. On one hand, when we perceive universalist nationalism, excluding all the traditional and religious values, on the other hand, the ethnic nationalism fosters the cultural and religious and traditional ethics to establish national identity. Most of the countries in the world enables the cohabitation of the two types of nationalism, universalist and ethnic, through the bridge of secularism. Thank you once more.